Hey guys, welcome back. So for this one, we're looking at what seems to be the end of Thor's story. Because this whole time, Dario Agger's been cooking in the background. And dinner's ready. So let's get into it. But first, if you're enjoying these videos, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squad up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so coming right back, we pick up with Thor at Roxxon headquarters after speaking to his mother and discovering the only way to stop the Elder Gods is for him to serve their judgment in a more efficient way, because for years the people of Earth just haven't been taking care of it. So Thor's mother Gia made a deal with her brothers to force the world to change. But the problem with their method is it's going to cost the lives of millions. So as a way of showing the world mercy, Gia has put it on her son Thor to be a more targeted and concise solution that would minimize the amount of lives that it would cost to get this done. And that's why Thor's made his way here, straight to Roxxon headquarters, into the office of Dario Agger, the Minotaur. And with Thor busting his way through, destroying Dario's gold and diamond elevator doors, Dario Agger is just calmly sitting at his desk, telling Thor how many laws he's breaking right now and how fine and precious those doors were. So Thor's more or less like, oh yeah, is that right? And what about your desk? And Dario's like, oh, this is fine Brazilian mahogany. So Thor just destroys his desk too, converting it to the finest matchwood in all of Midgard. But in response to this, Dario just thinks Thor's trying to shake him up and scare him. So Thor lets him know that he's serious. And when it comes to obeying the laws of the land, Thor only does this as a courtesy. And he lets Dario know if he wants to talk about damage. What Thor's done here pales in comparison to what Roxxon's been doing to the earth. So Thor lets him have it and he tells him, as Midgard's child, the true son of the soil, I will tell you plain creature, my mother is ill pleased with thee. Which, I don't know why, but it makes me chuckle a little bit reading that. Like, my mother is ill pleased with thee. But again, Dario Agger, he's not taking this as a threat whatsoever. And he even tells Thor that his temper is getting the best of him here. So Thor lays it out for him, letting Dario know that his temper is nothing in comparison to what's to come, referring to the Elder Gods if they carry this out themselves. Because if they do, at best, hundreds of thousands or millions will die. Or at worst, we're talking about the end of the world. But when Thor mentions the end of the world, Dario Agger just laughs in his face. And you know, for a second here, I kinda don't blame him. Cause it's like, how many times have we heard that? But things take a bit of a turn here when Dario tells him, don't threaten me with a good time, as their surroundings transform into the future of how the world will look if Dario Agger has his way. Which at first has Thor believing that they've traveled through time and this is real. But Dario tells him that this is more of a proof of concept, something like a hologram, which for Thor, this now has him thinking like, okay, this illusion is a little too perfect because the air is burning, the clouds in the sky are just made up of ash and poison. So he knows that there's more going on here than just a simple hologram, like something's being done to him. So Thor grabs his axe, Tormod, only to notice that it feels heavy in his hand. So from here, Dario then takes Thor over to this Roxxon dome off in the distance, and he tells Thor, after the human race has been downsized, pruned to fit the next evolution of capitalism, it will look like this, the Rox Dome. The exterior provides security against outsiders, not that there are any left, but it's the thought that counts, while inside is an exclusive climate-controlled paradise for select Roxxon customers, which is a crazy concept when you think about it. Like, this is peak corporate corruption, much like how we're heading towards the end of being able to buy physical games. But mind you, as Thor's having this conversation with Dario Agger, the two of them aren't alone here in this illusion. But Thor goes on to entertain the conversation with him because he's curious to know why the Minotaur would kill his own planet for coin, and what's caused this black winter in his heart, which is an interesting choice of words coming from Thor. So Dario goes on to give him a long-winded answer, which really he's doing as a bit of a distraction within the distraction, but he does end up telling Thor, the truth is, I like when the numbers go up. That's all. Because that means I win, that means I'm better, and that's all there is. Anyway, think fast, Thunder God. And as he's saying this, we see the Lawnmower Man running up on Thor, getting ready to smack him with the Yard Max 170, only to find out that this guy was Scourge the whole time. But the axe that he's using here is one that was made for him by Dario Agger, out of carbon steel. So it's nowhere near as powerful as the Blood Axe, and that's why when Scourge uses this axe against Thor, it's no match for the Uru metal. And with the hammer biting into his axe, Scourge is able to twist Mjolnir out of Thor's hand, which on one side you can look at like, hey, yeah, that's a smart move. But at the same time, Thor is very disoriented at the moment, so his reaction time's a lot slower than what we're used to seeing. And after dropping Mjolnir, Thor pulls out his new axe, but before he can do anything, Scourge punches Thor out of the window of Dario Agger's office, outside of the illusion. And it causes Thor to notice, like, man, Scourge is stronger and quicker, while Thor's moving all sluggish. And Thor realizes, though he came here without a plan, clearly the Minotaur is up to something. And as Thor's falling, he calls for both his hammer and his axe, but only his hammer comes back, which again, it's very odd. But after making his way back up to Dario's office, Thor now sees Scourge wielding Tormod. And it's kind of funny because Scourge is like, you should put an inscription on this one too. Something like, whosoever holds this axe, if they be wise, well, they'll just possess the axe of Thor. But after this, it's here where we start to get what's almost like an explanation from Scourge as far as why he's working with Dario Agger. Because for a moment here, he references his own death from Thor Volume 1, Issue 362, when Scourge took Thor's place, holding off the army of the dead, which resulted in his death. So he tells Thor that was the moment of his making, and he wants it back. So he goes on to say, my dreams have showed a prophecy of doom for whoever carries thy godly weapons. So now that will be me, which on the surface to Thor, this just sounds like a bunch of riddles. And if I'm honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because at face value, it sounds like Scourge wants revenge in compensation for what he believes that he's lost. But if we look at his most recent death that took place during War of the Realms in Asgardians of the Galaxy issue 10, we know following this, Scourge went to Valhalla. And more recently, Jane Foster discovered that Odin sent Scourge back to the land of the living from Valhalla to help Thor because of the dangers that are yet to come. Because at the time, in issue 3 of Al Ewing's Avengers Incorporated, Odin admitted when he made Valhalla, he created it with a back door, and he's allowed Scourge through that back door a number of times. But the reason why he let Scourge out this time, it was because of his dream, which played out much like his previous death, where he took Thor's place. But when you take someone else's death for your own, you feel when it leaves you to seek who it was meant for. So for that reason, Odin knew that Scourge and Thor have a fate that's tied together. And that's why he sent Scourge, believing that he has the greatest chance out of anyone to save Thor. And really that's why, to me at least, it really seems like Scourge is intentionally speaking in riddles here, as a way of telling Thor the truth without directly telling Thor the truth. Because as it stands, we're supposed to believe that Scourge is working with Dario Agger because he wants revenge. And of course, right now with Thor being in the state that he's in, he totally buys into this at face value. So he tells Scourge that he's gonna make sure he dies in battle so he can make it back to Valhalla. But next, out of nowhere, Enchantress shows up. And in her case, unlike Scourge, it's very clear that she actually wants revenge. Because in the case of Scourge, it can still go either way. But for Enchantress, I'm totally convinced that she has it out with Thor. Because in addition to Scourge, she believes that Thor has allowed countless others to die out of negligence, or either because Thor was busy, or he believed that something else was more important. And with hearing Enchantress speak of these things, deep down inside, Thor knows that there's some truth to it. And after revealing herself, the Enchantress brings back the illusion, which now has Thor realizing that she's causing his mind to fog, and it's hampering his ability to control Tormod. And it has him like, this is your doing, Amora. And she's just like, bravo, what tipped you off? But next, when Thor asked her, what magic is she using on him? She tells him the oldest magic, the secret fire, which, like we saw before, this is what she'd been using. Because it's also what Loki noticed back in issue 7, when him and Thor revisited their memory of Utgard, back when Loki mentioned that someone else is drawing from the same fire, back when Loki was explaining how this flame could even backfire on the person wielding it. But right here, the Enchantress, she says a very similar statement, because she goes on to tell Thor, as gods, we are susceptible to such magic. Our tale is as much of a part of us as our bone, blood, or the thread of our fate. For such as us, it is truly the magic art. But it's a little different here on Muddy Midgard, wouldn't you say, Dario? Which now, this is shifting things towards the big reveal, because next, Dario pretty much tells Thor that he agrees with what the Enchantress said, but just replace the word art with content, which for Thor, this still isn't making any sense to him. And that's kind of the point here with all these distractions and illusions. But the bottom line of what Dario Agger's doing, it goes back to the beginning of this series when we saw that he bought the publishing rights for Thor, because that's what this is all about. Because with Amora's help, Thor's story which, like she said, it's a part of their bone, their blood, and the thread of their fate. So with her help using this old magic, Dario Agger is now able to change Thor's story. And for a moment here when we go back to Scourge, this is why yet again I'm like, it's hard to tell which side he's actually on. Cause there's the moment here where he grabs Thor and he's like, I got your axe, all I need is the hammer, so give it up and let me take your place. Which again, that could be interpreted either way, cause Scourge even gives him the option of handing it over or doing it the hard way. But nonetheless, Thor chooses the hard way, since he believes that this is a threat on his life, and if his fate must go in any direction, it's his to choose. So right here, Dario Agger breaks the truth to him, and he more or less tells Thor like, yeah, well, it don't work like that here. Because like Dario mentioned before, Thor is content, as he holds up issue 1 of Roxxon Presents Thor. And initially Thor thinks this is just another illusion, but they assure him no, this is the real deal. And Dario tells him, some time ago you made an error, Thor. You allowed someone to publish your adventures, not public domain retellings of ancient legends, month by month reports of your current exploits. I'm sure it seemed harmless enough. Why not sign your story away for a charitable donation? It's only ink on paper, only these days it's not. The story isn't just a story, it's a movie, a toy, a cake topper, an entire corporate machine. Now I control that machine. It brings me profit, it brings me power, it makes the number go up, and that's sweet enough. But when Scourge and the Enchantress approached me, I discovered that it can do even more. It can take your power away. But on top of this, we also learned that there's a bit of a catch here, cause Amora admits she's not as skilled as Loki with story magic, so to make her spell powerful enough, she needed Dario Agger's help to get this comic out in front of millions of readers, either on paper or by way of free websites, or even single panels posted on social media. So with these millions upon millions of readers, it makes her spell powerful enough to even affect the Allfather. And also there's an element to this as well where we're talking about Thor's story on Midgard. So part of it has to do with him being here and having to fight it off while he's here, which only gets harder with more people reading these issues. But just after this, Thor takes a look at issue 1 and he starts to read it. And as soon as he does, Roxxon Thor shows up. And that's it, cause I know how much y'all love cliffhangers. But the wild part is, after this, things are switching over to Roxxon Presents Thor issue 1. So in a way, as we read the comic, we're gonna be making things worse. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.